Here are 4 different tents, from small and inexpensive to large and a premium price. So today I'm gonna help you in choosing the right tent for you and for your next trip. Let's go. As you can see, these are all different styles, except for these two. They're very similar, yet they have some key differences, but we're gonna get into that later. But each of these have different sizes, different styles, and all serve different purposes. So the goal of today's video is to explain those differences and show you how you're gonna use those for different situations and explain why they all have vastly different price points. Let's start out with this small guy over here, the one-person bivvy tent. If you aren't familiar with a bivvy tent, it's a step above a bivvy sack, which is basically just a waterproof shell that goes over you and your sleeping bag. Now this tent is old, it's been used and abused, taken all over the place, and it's served me well. But what do you use this tent for? This is for one person who just needs a very simple shelter to sleep in at night. Or for someone who's trying to go very minimalist for backpacking and can just leave their backpack against a tree outside for the night. Or honestly, for someone like me when I was younger who was just getting into camping alone. It's an okay tent for a high schooler who likes going out into the woods or onto your hunting land and sleeping outdoors for the night. What makes this tent unique is that it only has one door and weighs 2 pounds 10.5 ounces. Additionally, it is 82 inches long, 48 inches wide at the front, and 36 inches tall at the front. And it tapers down towards the back. It is much smaller at the back of the tent. So what are the pros of the tent? For one, it's very lightweight, you can easily use it for backpacking and you can carry it anywhere. And two, it's very easy to set up. There are only 3 very short poles and it maybe took me 3 minutes to set up. But if I'm being honest, that's just about it for the pros on this tent. As for the cons, it's very short. You can't even sit up inside this, you can only lay down. It's also very small, it's not wide. There's only room for you. There's no room for your gear or for your backpack, and there's not even a vestibule where you can put your backpack underneath. It's also not very good in the rain. If there's going to be some heavy rain coming, you're definitely going to need a tarp over the top of this, but for light rain, you might be fine. It also doesn't have very good ventilation. There's only the door at the front and a very small screen at the back. Before, when I was using this, I would regularly wake up with condensation all over the inside of the tent. So what's the cost of the tent? Well, this one is very old and I don't think it's sold anymore. The one on screen right now is the closest one that I could find, and it's only $30 at Cabela's. The reason this costs $30 is because it's not waterproof. The materials are cheap, because the design is so simple that a middle schooler could draw it up, and it's just so small. There's only room to sleep inside this. Again, it is good for a younger person who's just getting into solo camping, but again, it is a cheap tent and you get what you pay for. Alright, on to our second tent, the Timber Ridge 2-person camping tent. On Amazon, this is branded a little bit more towards backpacking, but I would not consider this a backpacking tent. To me, and probably most other people who are into backpacking, they would consider this a car camping tent. This is the kind of tent that you can use for yourself or another person for a weekend camping trip in your local state park. It's great to use with your friends or your family, and just like 3 weeks ago, I let my buddy sleep in this for a weekend camping trip. Additionally, this is a 3-season tent, meaning it's meant to be used in the spring, summer, and fall, not in the winter, and definitely not in the snow. The next few traits are very similar to almost all 2-person tents, at least 2-person tents that have a similar design to this one. It has a larger area on the inside with some mesh pockets where you can fit your keys, phone, chargers, wallet, headlamp, books, pretty much anything you can fit inside there. It's mesh on the entire top for good ventilation and has a rain fly to keep you completely covered. Additionally, there are these little openings on the side of the rain fly that you can prop open for improved ventilation. I keep talking about ventilation, and that's because it is crucial for keeping the inside of your tent dry. Without a lot of big areas for air to blow in and out of your tent, you're going to be left with a ton of condensation inside your tent. Since that small bivvy tent has very poor ventilation, there is a very bad condensation problem when you wake up in the morning. There is also some vestibule space. That is those overhanging parts near the doors. That is called a vestibule. This is where you can store some of your gear and keep it covered from the elements. The tent also has 2 doors, one on each side, and it weighs 6 pounds, 3.5 ounces. It measures 83 inches long, 52 inches wide, and 40 inches tall. So what are the pros of this tent? Again, for one, it was easy to set up. It maybe took me 5 minutes. There is more interior space. There's actually room to sit up inside this and pockets for storage. It has a vestibule to store gear, even an awning if you have trekking poles, which I actually forgot to bring mine today. It has good ventilation, and it is fully covered from top to bottom with a rain fly. You do not want a tent that comes with that little 1-foot square rain fly. In my opinion, a proper and well-performing rain fly will fully cover the tent and come within like 3 or 4 inches from the ground. This is super super important for keeping you dry when it rains. Okay, that's all for the pros. Now what are the cons? For one, it's branded towards a backpacking tent, but this is too heavy for backpacking. It's definitely a camping tent. And two, you can't use the awning if you don't have trekking poles like I forgot today. But that's not really the end of the world. Honestly, I tried to think of more cons for this tent, but if you use it for what it's designed for, it's a great little tent. So what's the cost of the tent? And that's the crazy thing. On Amazon, this is only $80, which I think is a pretty darn good deal. I expected this to be at least $100. Now, it's not a fancy tent and it's not an expensive tent, but it seems to be good quality. I would imagine this would last you for several years of camping. Alright, next up is where names get crazy because this is the Big Agnes Copper Spur HVUL 2. And yes, this is very similar to the Timber Ridge tent, having basically all the same features. It has 2 doors, 2 awnings, 2 vestibules, proper ventilation, interior pockets, you can sit up inside of it, and has a rainfly that fully covers the tent. But this tent is half of the weight of the Timber Ridge tent. That's what makes this a backpacking tent and not a camping tent. I mean, you can use it for camping, but that's not really what this is designed for. In fact, the UL in the name actually stands for ultralight, meaning that it is ultra lightweight. This weighs in at only 3 pounds, 2 ounces, and is actually a little bit bigger than the Timber Ridge. You can fit 2 people inside here very comfortably, and it packs down very nicely inside of or attached to your backpack. The second key difference between the Big Agnes tent and the Timber Ridge tent is the price. The Timber Ridge only costs $80, but the Big Agnes tent costs $550, a shocking difference. And this is mainly because of the materials used to make the tent. The Big Agnes tent is made with a very lightweight and durable silicone-treated double ripstop denier nylon mixed with waterproof polyurethane coating fabric, along with a specifically designed shape and lightweight poles, all which cost more to produce. Where the Timber Ridge tent is made with heavier and less expensive polyester and polyurethane, and that's where it takes a very specific person and situation to use this tent. You wouldn't or shouldn't pay this much money for a 2-person tent just for a few weekend camping trips in the summer. This tent is made for someone who loves backpacking, for someone who likes to hike many miles to their next campsite and over many days, and they want to do it as lightweight as possible. So if you're interested in ultralight backpacking or are trying to lighten your load while you're backpacking, this ultralight tent could be a good option for you. And here we are, onto the big boy. This is the Nemo Aurora High-Rise 4-person tent. And yes, this is most definitely a camping tent, not a backpacking tent. It weighs in at just under 16 pounds and has a peak height of 75 inches or about 6 foot 3 inches. The floor dimensions are 90 inches by 100 inches, so it's just slightly rectangular. There are large vestibule spaces both at the front and at the back of the tent. There's a double door at the front and a single door at the back. There's lots of pockets on the inside, even a couple mesh windows. A massive rainfly that beautifully covers this from head to toe, and great ventilation with the windows and the large openings under the rainfly at the sides. So with all that stuff said, there is a ton of room inside this tent, which is pretty obvious just by looking at it. And this is only the 4-person tent. They make a 6-person version too. This tent is made for a family who loves camping on the weekends or for even longer trips. You can use this with a group of friends, or I personally use this with my girlfriend for all of our camping trips and road trips. There's enough space where we can fit our large sleeping pad inside of it and enough room where we can both stand up and walk around. We can fit our bags inside there and pretty much everything we need for camping that's not inside of our car. The price of this 4-person tent is $400, where the 6-person version is $500. So the kind of person that would buy this tent is someone who really enjoys camping and wants to have a lot of space with their significant other, or use this with their friends or with their family. And this is just one example of a larger 4-person tent. There are many other less expensive options if you are looking for a larger tent. The last thing I want to talk about is what price range to look for when you're purchasing a new tent. There are hundreds to thousands of different tents available online and way too many to choose from, and the inexpensive ones can be very attractive. But remember, you get what you pay for, and if you buy a cheap tent, it's going to perform like a cheap tent. I would say if you're looking for a 1-person or a 2-person tent, I would not go under the $80 that is this Timber Ridge tent. And if you're looking for a larger, like 4 or 6-person tent, the absolute lowest that I would go is probably $120, maybe even a little bit higher than that. And if you're more serious about camping, I would look into name brands that have proven themselves that they perform well. So I sincerely hope that this video gave you a better idea on what tent is right for you. And if you feel like it did, please give this video a like, as it really does help me out too. In the description of this video, there are links to some of the examples that I have shown, and if you need any more advice or have any questions, please leave me a comment down below. Thank you all for watching this video, and I will see you in my next one.